So here's the deal. My husband took his coworker on our anniversary trip while I was at home taking care of my sick mom. Yeah, you read that right. I served him divorce papers at dinner, and now he's losing everything. Never in a million years did I think I'd be in this situation, but here I am. Hi, I'm Ava, 27, and I've been hitched to John, who's 28 for 3 years now. We met back in college, me studying education and him grinding away at his law degree. It was a pretty complicated love story, but we made it work. After a few years of dating, he popped the question, and our wedding was this fairy tale event. The first few years of marriage, absolute bliss. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing, supporting each other, dreaming about the future. But then, over the last year or so, things took a nosedive. John got super wrapped up in his job at this big law firm. I get it, he's ambitious, and I've always loved that about him. But it started feeling like his job was his real spouse. Late nights, missed dinners, weekends in the office. I tried to be cool about it, thinking it was just a rough patch. I even went all out planning this epic anniversary trip, hoping it would bring us back together. Then enter Molly, the new hire at his firm. She's 25, young, driven, and apparently a breath of fresh air. John talked about her a lot, how they clicked at work, how she had great ideas. I didn't think much of it. I trusted him. But over time, I started noticing little changes. He was dressing sharper, hitting the gym, and glued to his phone even when we were supposed to be hanging out. I'd joke, "Should I be worried about Molly?" And he'd laugh it off, calling me ridiculous. Still, a gut feeling told me something was off. Our relationship started to crumble. No more date nights, conversations turned robotic, and the intimacy, non-existent. Every time I tried to talk about it, he brushed me off, blaming work stress. I held out, thinking things would eventually get better, but they only got worse. He was home less, distracted more, and I was left feeling like a ghost in my own marriage. Then there was Molly. Whenever her name popped up, John would get this look in his eyes that made my stomach twist. The final straw? He ditched our date night for some work event with her. I tried to confront him, but he played it off like I was imagining things. I finally asked him point blank if something was going on between them, and he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Are you serious? Molly is just a friend. You're being paranoid?" he said. I wanted to believe him, but the signs were all there. I planned a romantic mountain getaway for our anniversary, hoping to fix things. But just as we were about to leave, my mom fell seriously ill. I told John to go without me, thinking some time away would do him good. He was hesitant but eventually went. The first couple of days, we texted and FaceTimed like normal, but then he got distant, only sending vague replies. Then came the photo. A friend vacationing in the same area sent me a picture of John and Molly at a restaurant we had reservations for. My heart sank. He took her on our anniversary trip while I was at home, worried sick about my mom and hoping to save our marriage. I was crushed. Once he got back, I didn't confront him right away. I played it over and over in my head, not sure how to approach it. My best friend told me to leave him, but I was torn. Part of me wanted to throw his stuff out and file for divorce, but another part wondered if I was overreacting. After days of stewing, I finally decided to confront him. I rehearsed my lines, imagining every possible reaction from him: apology, denial, or worse, gaslighting me. When the moment came, I went for it. "John, we need to talk," I said. He looked up surprised. "What's up?" I took a deep breath. "I know about Molly. I know you took her on the anniversary trip." His face went pale. He looked like he might deny it, but then sighed. "Ava, it's not what you think," I scoffed. "Really? Because it looks like you took your work wife on our romantic vacation." He shook his head. "It wasn't romantic. She was just having a hard time at work, and I thought it would be nice for her to get away." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you decided to play hero and take her on our trip? Did you even think about how that would make me feel?" And that's where we are now. It feels like my world is falling apart, but I'm trying to figure out my next move. He said defensively, "You told me to go. I didn't want to cancel, and it just happened." Just happened? Did it just happen that you were holding hands in the picture my friend sent me? Did that just miraculously happen too? I shot back. John stared at me, completely lost for words. He knew he was busted. After our confrontation, John stormed out, muttering something about needing time to think. Fine by me, I needed time to plan my next move. The betrayal felt like a slap in the face, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. There was no way I was going to sit around and be disrespected like this. If he wanted Molly, he could have her, but I wasn't going to make it easy. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I didn't tell John yet, but I was already gearing up for the worst. There was no way I was going to be one of those women who just sit around hoping their husband will change after such a blatant betrayal. I needed to protect myself. A few days later, I asked John to meet me for dinner at a nice restaurant. I figured a public place might keep things calm. He showed up looking all nervous, probably expecting another argument. But me? I was cool as a cucumber. I'd already made up my mind about what I was going to do. Once we were seated and had ordered, I slid a manila envelope across the table toward him. "What's this?" he asked, looking puzzled. "Divorce papers," I said flatly. "I've already spoken to a lawyer." John's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. "Ava, are you serious? You're going to throw away our marriage over one mistake?" "One mistake?" I nearly laughed. "You've been checked out of this marriage for months, John, and then you took her on our anniversary trip. I don't know how you define a mistake, but that's not something I can forgive." He glanced around the restaurant, probably hoping no one was listening, but I didn't care. "Ava, please, let's just talk about this. You can't seriously want a divorce." "I didn't want this," I said, "but you've given me no choice. I'm not going to be the second option in my own marriage." That night, John tried calling me over and over, but I didn't answer. I was done talking. He'd made his choice, and I was making mine. I called my best friend, who immediately came over with wine and ice cream, and we spent the night going over every detail of the confrontation. By the time John got home, I'd locked the bedroom door and fallen asleep. I could hear him pacing in the hallway, probably debating whether or not to knock, but he didn't. Guess he realized it was too late for that. Since then, things have been tense. John is still staying in the house, but we barely speak. He keeps trying to apologize, telling me he made a mistake and doesn't want to lose me, but I'm not sure I care anymore. Update. It's been 2 weeks since I handed John the divorce papers at the restaurant, and honestly, part of me feels like I've taken back control, but another part of me is devastated by how fast everything has crumbled. After that night, John tried to act like nothing had happened. He's still living in the house, which makes everything 100 times more awkward. We barely speak, and when we do, it's super tense. I don't even know how to describe it. He's either trying to apologize and guilt-trip me into taking him back, or he's sulking like a child. I'm not giving in, though. I've made it clear that this is what I want, but I don't think he fully believes me yet. I met with my lawyer again to start the official process. We talked about dividing up our stuff, which hasn't been easy. Thank goodness we don't have kids, but we do have a house, 2 cars, and joint savings. John is trying to drag it out, saying we don't need to involve lawyers and that he wants to make things right. I also found out that John hasn't been honest about our finances. While going through our accounts, I noticed some weird withdrawals and expenses I didn't recognize. Turns out he's been spending on Molly, dinners, trips, even her apartment rent on a few occasions. He was basically funding her lifestyle while claiming they were just friends. I was livid when I found out, but at this point, it just confirmed what I already knew. What's even more frustrating is that now that I've served him with divorce papers, John is trying to win me back. He's pulling out all the stops: flowers, love letters, promises to be a better husband. It would be almost laughable if it didn't hurt so much. A few days ago, he sat me down and told me he'd cut off contact with Molly, that she meant nothing, and that he only realized how much he loves me after I handed him those papers. He actually cried, which is something I'd never seen him do before. It was hard not to feel anything, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the betrayal. He doesn't get how deeply he hurt me. It's not just about Molly. It's about the months of neglect, the lies, the fact that I felt like a ghost in my own marriage for so long. I told him that I couldn't forgive him and still want the divorce. He looked devastated, but I had to stand my ground. He asked if we could go to counseling, but honestly, I don't see the point. I feel like we're way past the point of fixing anything. Of course, the fallout hasn't been limited to just John and me. Our families are involved, and it's been a mess. My parents are furious with John. They never liked how distant he'd become over the last year, but this whole situation has pushed them over the edge. My mom keeps calling to make sure I'm okay and has already told John he's not welcome at family events anymore. I didn't expect her to go nuclear like that, but I appreciate the support. On the other hand, John's family is a different story. His mom called me last week, begging me to reconsider. She said marriages go through rough patches and that we just need to work through it. She even had the nerve to suggest that I was overreacting. I couldn't believe it. I told her that if she wanted to take sides, she could go ahead and support her cheating son, but I wasn't going to be guilted into staying in a broken marriage. Then there's the whole Molly situation. Word has gotten around at John's law firm, and now people know about their little fling. Some of John's coworkers, who I've met at social events over the years, have reached out to express their shock and sympathy. Turns out, Molly isn't exactly popular at the office. There are rumors that she's been inappropriately close to other male coworkers before, and now people are gossiping about her and John. I've heard that Molly has been avoiding the office ever since the news broke. Speaking of Molly, from what I've heard, things between her and John have cooled off significantly. He's been avoiding her ever since the divorce papers were served. I think he realizes now what a mess he's made, but I also think he's not fully ready to let go of her. There's been no grand breakup between them, but I can tell John's trying to figure out what to do. I've started looking for a new place to live. I need to get out of this house. Being here, surrounded by memories of what used to be, is suffocating. Every corner of this house reminds me of a time when I thought John and I were happy. Now it feels like a monument to all the lies and broken promises. Meanwhile, John seems to be unraveling. He's still going to work, but he's a shell of the man he used to be. John isn't the same guy I used to know. Some of his friends have mentioned he's been really distant and all over the place lately. In fact, there's even talk that his performance at the firm has nosedived. I'm not happy about it, but honestly, I'm not shocked. Living a double life is bound to catch up with you sooner or later. It's clear that his fling with Molly wasn't worth the mess he's in now. I think he's starting to get that, but it's too late for me. He's tried to talk to me a few more times, but I've been pretty firm in my decision. I deserve way better than this. So it's been 3 months since I handed John the divorce papers, and wow, things have only gotten messier. I thought I was making headway in moving on from the betrayal, but now everything feels like a giant whirlwind. When I first served the divorce papers, I assumed it would be simple since we don't have kids and our assets were fairly straightforward to split. But of course, John had to complicate everything. After failing to win me back, he's now contesting almost every little thing: our house, the cars, even our joint savings. And oh joy, he got himself a lawyer because handling a divorce on his own isn't his thing. They're fighting tooth and nail to give me as little as possible. The worst part is, John's trying to paint me as the unreasonable one. He even hinted that if I dropped the case, we could start over and work through this. He just doesn't get that we're way past that point. What really ticked me off was when he claimed the house should be his because he's the primary breadwinner. Never mind that I contributed just as much financially when I was working, or that I sacrificed my career for our marriage. His sense of entitlement is unreal. Thankfully, my lawyer has been amazing. She's helped me gather proof of John's infidelity, and we're using that to fight for a fair division of assets. We also found out that John has been funneling money into a secret account he claims is for work expenses. Yeah, we're digging into that too. Mediation attempts have been a total flop. John's still holding on to the hope that I'll back down, but I'm not letting him push me around. Every meeting feels like a battlefield, and it's pretty satisfying to see the frustration on his face when he realizes I'm not giving in. While John's dragging out the divorce, things at his law firm aren't looking too good. Word about his affair with Molly has spread like wildfire, causing a ton of tension. Mutual friends mentioned that some of his colleagues are starting to question his judgment, especially given Molly's reputation for getting a little too cozy with the men she works with. John's bosses are not thrilled about the drama either. Apparently, clients have asked if John's personal life is affecting his work, which is not a great look for the firm. There are even rumors that John's position could be in jeopardy if things get worse. It's kind of ironic. He trashed his marriage for Molly, and now he might lose his career too. As for Molly, she's bailed. She transferred to another firm after all the gossip became too much. I guess she didn't want to deal with the fallout either. Not sure what's going on between her and John now, but from what I hear, their relationship isn't exactly a fairy tale. While John's world is falling apart, I've been trying to rebuild mine. I moved out of our house a month ago and found a small apartment in the city. It's been strange adjusting to life on my own, but it's also liberating. I don't feel like I'm walking on eggshells anymore. and having my own space has allowed me to focus on myself for the first time in a long while. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. Emotionally, I'm still a mess some days. I thought I'd be further along in the healing process, but there are times when the betrayal hits me out of nowhere and I just break down. I've been trying to push through it, going to therapy, journaling, leaning on friends. But I won't lie, it's been tougher than I expected. What really threw me off recently was John's family. After months of total silence, his mom reached out to me. She was polite, but I could tell she was having a hard time. She mentioned that John's falling apart and asked if I'd consider talking to him again, even just to give him some closure. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt bad for her, but another part of me was furious she would even ask, considering everything her son put me through.